Brother Will.
Brother Rich, we are live and obtaining the target heart rate through caffeine usage.
Absolutely. I got my Charlie
Mhm.
Kirk freedom.
Look at you. I almost wore my Charlie Kirk Freedom shirt this morning. I guess I should have.
Yep, man, he's a should be an example to us all.
Yes, for sure. And it's it's sad that a guy that just wants to go out there and have a conversation meets that end.
But that's whether you're talking about killing Dr. King or Edgar
Mhm.
Evers or Bobby Kennedy. I mean, all these people. You got to. I think ideas are dangerous to some people.
Well, they are because he was starting to get control of the youth. Control is probably not the right word, but having influence on the youth, and the left can't have that
No, sir.
because you control the youth, you control the future, right?
That's right.
So,
Are you
and
tracking
we're
any of this? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Will, I'm sorry.
no, go right ahead. What's up, man?
I was just saying, are you tracking? I'm not. Just get this out there. This Candace Owens, Erica Kirk's drama.
No, I'm aware there's drama, but that's the extent of it.
Yeah, I guess I'll have to dig in. I keep getting people that, I don't know.
I don't. Yeah,
Maybe.
I'm kind of over a lot of that stuff.
Hmm.
It's noise, it's clicks. Maybe there's some fire where there's all the smoke sometimes, but a lot of it's just attention seeking and you know sad stuff, really.
Couldn't agree with you more. I saw your post saying that we're going to be on this morning, and you were saying the pet rock may make an appearance.
I thought you'd get a chuckle out of that.
I started to bring some of my pet rocks here to make me feel better this morning. If we're gonna make an appearance, I could be like,
There you go. The bouncing pet rock.
mm-hmm. For those you
So,
don't know, joining us this morning, my pet rock is gold,
yes, it is.
as
You got
is silver. Big fan of silver too.
Yep. They're both great assets, and over time we know which way they're going. And you and I just operate on different timelines and time structures within that.
I'm more like a glacier, slowly moving to the sea, and every now and then a little, what do they call it, calf,
Calving.
calving. There you go.
Yep.
Oh,
So, yep, I bounce back and forth a little more, like the heat molecule inside said glacier, I guess.
you are, bro. Big time.
So, yep. All right. So, shall we get at it here?
Absolutely. Ooh, look at that. I don't think we've seen
Yeah.
that yet. And we've been tracking this thing for years now.
Yeah. It did bounce down there last fourth quarter last year. It bounced down there quickly, and you see back in 25 there around tariff time we got there. This is usually pretty short lived, although of course, like most of the world right now, Iran's throwing a monkey wrench and stuff. So we'll wait and see what happens. But anytime anything really gets way out of whack, overbought, oversold, extreme fear, extreme greed, it doesn't last. And we're gonna touch on the Iran thing at the very end here with a little blurb about a cyber attack. And of course, Iran is the Iran, I don't know, conflict, whatever you want to call that over there. Military action, I guess, is the official name. It is dominating the news headlines, and of course, the oil side of that, as it should, because oil flows through into every cost we have, touches every part of our life, and the uncertainty there is what's driving this fear in the market. Private credit is not helping.
Mm.
We have more private credit funds gating redemptions, as is their right per the contract. And there's some small private credit outfits that are probably going to go bust.
Mm.
But there's a lot of gloom and doom out there with private credit, and some of it is warranted, but it's not going to be a housing crisis 2.0. The total private credit market's like $1.5 trillion. The housing market at the time of the housing crisis was something like $30 trillion. So where it could have an effect, though, is if it starts making banks pull back on other lending because they're not sure what they're exposed to. Because it's not just outfits like Blue Owl that nobody heard of 6 months ago for the most part. I mean, JP Morgan has private credit. Morgan Stanley has private credit. Wells Fargo has it. So if suddenly they're not sure what they're exposed to, they can pull back on lending to regular people. And
Yeah.
then that is where it can have an outsized effect above that $1.5 trillion total market. That said, it won't be housing crisis 2.0 because there just aren't enough dollars there for that to be the case. So, of course, the media will play it up and make it sound like it's going to be Armageddon, but I don't see it going that far. Now, could
Mhm.
that get tied in with something with, say, if Iran goes further? Sure, those things could all happen. But in and of by itself, I don't see private credit going that far. The other thing too that was brought up, something I was watching yesterday, actually was Steve Eisman. You know who he is, Rich, but you may not know his real name. He was they changed his name to Mark Baum in the Big Short.
Yeah. That's right.
So he does an excellent podcast, and he was bringing up that a lot of people are nervous about private credit, so they're looking to get their funds back. And the private credit company saying this is a legitimate business we're invested in, but if everybody pulls all their money out of fear, then it's going to no longer be a viable business. And like we say, per the contract, is their right to gate redemptions at a certain percentage per quarter, and that's what they're doing. So it is kind of a run on the bank, if you will, on the private credit side.
Okay. Well,
But so we'll wait and see how it plays out. But I much ado is being made about not much, in my opinion. So we'll see how it plays out. So I'm going to touch on the fourth turning here. So I found this chart really interesting. We've talked about the fourth turning before. Hard men create good times create hard men create good times create soft men create hard times create hard men. That's an 80-year generational cycle. And somebody here at Slope of Hope came up with this chart, which I found very interesting because we can see how this moves like a sine wave throughout history. And you can see there with the green dot where they think we are now. And I think they're spot on. We're not at the bottom. It is going to get worse, and we can see it even in things like I don't watch it. I'm sure you sat with your Chardonnay and your popcorn and watched the Oscars there, brother. But
not a chance, buddy.
but there was a time when that was a big deal, right? And across society, now nobody cares. So that's I see that as a small sign of the fourth turning, in that the things that used to matter don't, and people are losing faith in institutions. This is kind of like a recession for an economy, in that long term it's a health restoring event. So we're getting rid of the excess, learning what's really important, getting the fat out of institutions, things like that. But that's a painful process, just like when you and I ran ourselves into debt in our younger years, and we had to cut that out of our lives so that we could build off a better foundation, right? So I think society needs to see this as a process, and it's painful and it's not fun, but it's all part of the sine wave that moves through history here. And it's something that we're going to have to endure. And this is part of the reason we do the show and talk about financial stuff, because if we can get through the next few years, I'll just say 5 years, generically speaking, till we start on this upturn in a better position, then we have a solid foundation financially to build off of for our families.
Yeah. And look, when you and I grew up at the top of the wave, man. And, like Van Halen's 1984 was just part of that whole exuberance of that time. And what a great time to be alive. And now we're here in the doldrums.
Well, and let's think. I'm glad you brought that up, brother, because really from 82 on, we have built an economy based on easier times compared to the 70s, right? So the 70s and the social unrest, the inflation, the stagflation, the high interest rates, that was a mini reset within the fourth turning.
Yep.
And we've been building off that since 1982 when interest rates peaked. So, we look back on it now and go, oh man, that's been awesome since 1984. You had the music, you had the cars, you had all that stuff, right? We've been reaping those benefits. Well, we didn't, we didn't put anything back. We didn't save anything. We were people, we were human, right?
Well,
It's
not
never
only
gonna
that,
end.
that's when all the outsourcing went on.
Yep.
It's get it offshore.
hmm
We're in a time of peace and relative ease. So why should we make sneakers in Indiana? We can make them
Right.
in China, and
Yep.
it's a big mistake.
And that's coming undone. Excellent book if you haven't read it. The End of the World is Just the Beginning. One of your favorite people, Peter Zeihan. Excellent book. And the end of the world he's talking about is the end of globalization.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a major change, and prices are going to reset. The world is polarizing as we see. We're going from the Monroe Doctrine to the Donroe Doctrine, pulling back to the Western Hemisphere. Everything's changing. Doesn't mean it's necessarily getting worse, but it's going to change, and change hurts.
Yeah. And really, this is a whole nother conversation for another day, but why not pull back to the Western Hemisphere?
Yeah.
I mean, we've been blessed geographically with these giant oceans, man, and we can have a strong Navy and just be in our little bubble here. I don't know.
Yep.
Matt is on, and he says, good morning from Tulsa. Ted is on from Mississippi. He is coin number 1461. If you're listening to us and you're like, I don't know what this coin business is, then click on the links in today's shows. Take a free test drive. It doesn't hurt anything.
Absolutely. So, and so I left this slide in. Usually I do a little motivational thing at the end. You want to read this one off to us, brother? And then I just have a few thoughts on it.
In 1977, Indianapolis witnessed one of America's most terrifying hostage crises. Tony Christus's abducted mortgage executive Richard Hall strapped a shotgun to his neck, wired it to fire if police intervened. For 63 harrowing hours, Hall was forced to walk through the city as millions watched live on television. Every moment, a life or death gamble. Miraculously, he survived unharmed. Christus was later found not guilty by reason of insanity, shocking the nation and prompting Indiana to introduce guilty but mentally ill verdict. Now, the 2026 film Dead Man's Wire revisits this chilling ordeal that forever changed public fear and the justice system.
So the reason I leave that in there is I'd never heard of that until I came across this on whatever source. But we think about the 70s and the tumultuous times in there, and I'm talking about this in relationship to the fourth turning. You and I are pretty in tune with the news. Maybe not so much in 1977, but the fact that I just tripped across this by complete chance, never heard of it. Can you imagine what the coverage of something like this would look like today?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so we can look back at the unrest in the 70s, the hundreds of bombings that happened in the early 70s, that if it didn't make your morning newspaper, your afternoon newspaper, 5:30 world news or 6 o'clock local news, it didn't happen.
No, sir.
That's not the case now.
And most of those bombings were never reported, ever.
Yep.
And they were purposely subverted and kept off the news.
Yep. And now that's not going to happen. Either way, the 24-hour news cycle, right? You've got Fox on one side, you've got CNN, MSNBC on the other side with that, but also social media, Twitter, citizen journalists, all these things that are putting these things out there. And there's still some things that all of us will miss. But the point is, it's going to seem even more turbulent now than it did then, simply because we have access to all of those other sources. And so my point of bringing this up is that we need to prepare ourselves mentally for it's going to seem like the end of the world, because it's going to be there. We're going to see it.
Well, and again, you and I were texting about this, I think, over the weekend. We've had Sarah Adams on the show. If you don't know who she is, she was a CIA targeting officer. She was at Benghazi on September the 12th when the embassy was the consulate was overrun and the ambassador was killed. And we've had her on the show, and she's been saying for a long time that this is it. who are going to get hit, and there's going to be, and of course, we've seen at least 4 terrorist attacks that I'm aware of in the last couple of weeks. So I say all that to say, here's what pisses me off about where we are now. It's like I can't draw. If there was only some way that we could find some way to connect the dots between these 4, but they seem so disparate and so confusing. I can't understand motivations of why. It's like, what are you talking about? I mean, they're literally. We're back in the Obama days where they just won't say Islamic inspired terrorism or whatever the hell the man wouldn't say, and it's like, it's very obvious. These are either the children of immigrants, or they're some sort of naturalized citizen, or just an illegal alien. They're all Muslim jihadis, and they're committing violent acts on our soil. And the news media, specifically the left-leaning news media, is like, I just don't. It's so confusing, Sarah. We just can't figure out why little Timmy would go off the reservation like this. I'm like, really?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is I'll morph that into another sign of the fourth turning, because you and I have already lost faith in the media because we've watched these things for so long. Just loss of faith in another institution. I don't trust MSNBC. I don't trust CNN, NBC, ABC. I don't trust Fox because I've caught them in stuff too, right? Yep. So, this is why you and I have preached for a long time. Check all the sources. Check BBC. I don't trust them either. Check Al Jazeera. I sure don't trust them. But you'll get different perspectives on the same story. And the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. And also, you're starting to see some sources out there. 1440 is the only one I know off the top of my head. I know there's another one. In fact, the other one sounds even better, where you'll type in, say, the bombing outside of Mandami's house there in New York City. And it will give you links to multiple sources, and it'll say, you want to read the far left one or the far right one? And I wish I could remember the name of that, because I want to subscribe to their service.
If anybody's familiar with that, put it in the show notes, please. I'm not familiar.
Yeah,
with that.
I'll do some looking on that one, and it's a paid subscription service, as I understand, but it'd be well worth it, because you can be like, you want to read a center article on this? Click here, and that would restore my faith in the reporting, in that somebody is compiling that and letting you know right where it is.
Well, and I was going to pull up here how did CNN report the one outside of Gracie Mansion? Do you remember this?
I don't know.
Okay, I'll read it to you. This is on CNN. They later deleted it, but 2 Pennsylvania teenagers crossed into New York City Saturday morning for what could have been a normal day of enjoying the city during abnormally warm weather. But in less than an hour, their lives would be drastically changed, as the pair would be arrested for throwing homemade bombs during an anti-Muslim protest outside of Mayor Zohan Mondani's home. CNN. Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah. See, and that's just it. It's like, how am I supposed to have faith in the next thing I read from that source, no matter who it is?
Well, right? And then the mayor of New York blamed it on white supremacy. Yeah. We can't forget that.
Yeah. And I thought the most iconic photo of that, and I think we texted it around, was the gentleman with the bullhorn, chanting whatever, probably some of the lines of "all immigrants are welcome," as the terrorist is putting his hand on his shoulder to launch up to throw a bomb. And thankfully they weren't very good at building bombs, otherwise it could have been terrible. Yep. And then you've got the picture of that cop launching himself over that temporary fence to capture one of those guys, when a week before they were getting pelted with snowballs, and Mondami was saying, "Oh, it's just people having fun."
Mm-hmm. I interviewed Simon Golub, who's the husband of Julie Golub, a retired FBI guy, former diplomatic security services mobile assault team. He was also an NYPD cop. So we talked about that on Friday's show. So please go back and check that out. It was a fantastic show. He is, one of the best shooters out there, period, full stop. He owns pistol-training.com, and he's finally offering some civilian courses now that he's retired. But we talked about it. And NYPD, if you recall, during the Summer of Love, they changed their defensive tactics program, wherein there is never, ever, ever justification for you to put your knee on the back of a suspect, ever. And if you do, if you recall from 2020, they said if you do that, you will automatically be charged with the whatever the crime was, assault.
Yeah.
So if you watch the pig pile that happens on those
Yeah.
two terrorists, the
Uh-huh.
polyester pile, whatever you want to call it, I'm like, okay, if that's the plan, I want to see charges. I want to see every
Mhm.
officer charged because nobody's above the law. We got to charge these heroes and we got to drag them through the courts and destroy their lives and steal their money. I mean, the
Mhm.
stupidity that's going on. Of course, I'm being a smart ass, guys. Don't listen to what I'm saying. I'm being an asshole purposely to make a point, because you don't come up with these blanket, stupid, arbitrary rules like that, do you, Will?
No, you can't. And I would love to see somebody try to control anyone that's done 3 months of jujitsu or
Yep.
is just determined or wrestled for one season in high school. Try to control that person on the ground one on one without putting a knee on them.
Not happening.
Good luck. Yep, good luck. So yeah, it's people, policymakers, whatever level, whatever institution, coming up with policies when they haven't done the job or they're being influenced through political means or they have political aspirations, which is another sign of a fourth turning because people don't have faith in that institution then.
Yeah.
And I see Alan Kelly's on, speaking of lack of faith in institutions from triple occupied Virginia, that the laws they're passing there right now are insane. But the part that really irks me, and I'm sure you and I'm sure Alan, is they're exempting themselves. The Assembly of Virginia shall be exempted from these gun control laws.
Saw that
How
this
are you
morning.
supposed to have any faith in that institution when they exempt themselves from the things that they say are a great idea for the safety of everyone? Come on.
It's criminal,
Give me a
man.
break.
It truly is.
It is.
Yeah. My brother Jeff is on, says, hope everyone's doing well. What does Ted say?
Says, get odd pushback in discussions with most like-minded pals when they argue just accepting a crisis like in the late 1860s, political process unable to tackle to obvious issues. Yes, absolutely. And that was another fourth turning in our history, was the Civil War. So, and look, that's still impacting us, right?
Yeah.
Right. So,
Oh yeah.
and you know, we did our family Civil War trip down there and got to spend time with you and your awesome family. And it changed my view on it completely being down there. Because I was taught from a Northern perspective, right? I was born and raised in the North. The history books are always written by the victor, right? And so go out there and get that perspective, guys.
Yeah. Bruce is on from Michigan. Alan Kelly, as you mentioned, is on. Project 1868 is on. Good morning. Hope you're doing well. This is US 2050. Yep, coming up soon. Jeff, looks like he poses a question here. Do you think that planned obsolescence could keep us mentally stagnant in a negative way with no way of looking toward the bright side? Nearly everything is crap. What do you think?
I don't know if it would keep us mentally stagnant. I can see AI playing a big part in mental stagnation because I catch myself doing it now. Things that I used to, noodle out, like a long short trading theory that I used to sit there and noodle out and paper trade and all that stuff. Now I go to Chat GPT and inside of 15 minutes, I can make it come up with whatever program I want and write the spreadsheet to do it. And if I knew more, if I was smarter, I could probably get it to write the code for me just to do the trades. Yeah. So I can definitely see stagnation happening through that.
Yeah, true. All right.
So this one, I don't think this came to pass. It says an hour ago on here, but it was actually a number of days ago, maybe 3 days ago, from the Kobesi letter. Iran may allow oil tankers to pass through the Strait of Hormuz if the oil is traded in Chinese yuan instead of dollars. So I don't think this came to pass as such, but it's the world looking for a way to de-dollarize, get rid of that. And I actually think this is Iran and China were already trading oil in yuan prior to the military action there. So this was, I think, more of a public shot across the bow on that to try to pressure Trump into stopping. And this is another sign of the fourth turning. Things are changing, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to keep hammering away on that. And it's a long, slow process. We're still years away from this ending. It'll be the end of the decade before we, start to make the turn. So,
Yeah. I don't know if we're going to talk about this or if now's appropriate time or not, with this, what's going on there with Carg Island. You want to, is this anywhere in your slides? I haven't looked at it.
It is not, but we can, is it Carg?
I don't know how to pronounce it. Yeah.
Okay. I just started calling it Kaboom Island. I didn't know how to pronounce it, so I made up my own name. I thought it was appropriate. But what have you followed on that? Because I've been traveling down here to my southern command, so I've been a little out of touch.
Well, and I'm not in that much in the know. Although, and what is amazing to me is nobody's talking about it. So you've got this island which is quite far away from Iran, and it has their oil on it, and we blew the crap out of it, with the exception of all their oil refineries and storage facilities and stuff like that. And then the next thing you know, we're moving Marines into the region. Now, why would you move a Marine Expeditionary Unit of about 2,500 dudes if you weren't going to take this thing? And now that you've wiped out their Navy, there's zero to stop you. Now, there are about some of the reports I've read, about 8,000 people on Carg Island. I imagine they are just petroleum employees and things of this nature. But I mean, what a nice little prize to just, have the Marines storm ashore, roll that sucker up, and now you have control of that. And it's like taking the queen off the chessboard, truly. There's an airstrip there. I mean, it could be Rangers take the airfield and the Marines, roll in there and seize the petroleum before they can blow it up. I don't know. But it's going to be something to watch, because they're not moving the Marine Expeditionary Unit into the strait for no freaking reason. I promise you that.
Yeah, and I would agree with your assessment there. And we could see this whole thing coming. They're moving carrier strike groups into position. And this is, I think, I want to believe, I'll put it that way, I want to believe that there's a bigger picture at play here. I'm still a little dubious on this whole thing, to be perfectly candid.
Well, I am too, but let's stay in it for just a second, whether we push the I believe button or not, because I'm not there. I'm with you 100%. I'm not ready to push that button, but it's 300 miles off the coast, and about 90% of Iranian oil products come off that island. And there's
that part I agree with. This is the whole thing is what I'm still a little.
Oh, and you're right. To me, it's been a long time coming. I mean, this day was, as soon as they overthrew the Shah, it's just been a ticking time bomb waiting for this to happen.
True.
And we were going to have to do it eventually. I know people don't like that because it sounds bellicose, but this day was coming.
It was. And I just, I guess it's the, why now? And this is part of now that this has clicked in my brain, this is part of the fourth turning for me.
Yeah.
I fell for the Iraq WMDs, hook, line, sinker, right? Because I still trusted the right side of the institution at the time.
Yeah.
Okay. So I fell for that. I watched us spend, time and treasure to take 20 years to give Afghanistan back to the Taliban. Lost more faith in the system there, right? And now I'm suddenly supposed to have faith again. Sorry, guys, not happening.
It's funny. I had in my mind, because I was a gunnery sergeant on the morning of 9/11, and been in the Marine Corps for, I don't know, 13 years or so. And I should write a paper on everything I thought was going to happen, as I looked into my crystal ball on within 72 hours of the World Trade Center falling. And nothing happened that I thought what should happen. Let's put it that way. There was what probably will happen. And then what I'm like, if I'm a strategic planner, this is what should happen. And I stand by those thoughts I made as a 30, 31, 32-year-old guy at the time as to what we should have done. But when you're dealing with radical Islamists who don't care about killing their own children to wipe you out, and you tell everybody, go to the mall and go to Starbucks, I'm like, we're doomed. It's over. That is not a solution to fight radical. There's a billion of these radical people running around the planet, and you think killing Americans, go to Starbucks and have all you want. Relax. Don't worry about it. Buy some more stock. I'm like, we're doomed. We're just kicking the can down the road, man. We're not going to solve a damn thing.
Yep.
I'm sorry to let me apologize to the 15 folks watching. I didn't mean to get dark on you, but
no, but that's all. I mean, the general consensus is the fourth turning started in about 08. Obviously, you're talking right post 9/11, so we're already headed down that hill, right? So this is it all builds over time, and of course, looking back on it now as mature men, we can look back and see this process, right? So we try to teach it to the younger generation so they can see it too. Not that they're going to listen to us any more than we listen to our elders, but hopefully they can look back and be like, "Wow, Dad, turns out maybe Dad wasn't so dumb after all."
You know, it's funny about that. And my brother's on this morning. He can back me up here. We got terrible advice from our parents. Terrible. So my mom and dad were never right. And Jeff is on here. Jeff, give me a thumbs up if I'm wrong. I envy people that got great advice from their parents. Didn't happen here. And if you did get good advice from your family, didn't listen to it, then I don't know what to tell you. Ted says my propaganda fueled opinion must eliminate the Iranian enriched uranium. Can they see? There you go. He's got a point, because you don't think they're going to outsource that once they get it to enrichment grade. And here's another thing.
I agree.
You could have all the uranium you want that's enriched to the point with which you can use it, but these people kept going toward 90%. And it's like, okay, well, there's only one thing you can do with it at that level.
Yep. So, and to that point, back to Ted's comment, can they claim success? I guess right now, this is part of my problem with it is, tell me what the goal was. Because now, Trump can say at any time, he can just say, "Oh, we got to our goal." Okay, well, tell us what it is. Tell us what it is. Once we get going here, right?
That's why I thought Midnight Hammer was kind of like, okay, well, we kind of did that, set them back for a while, but I think Israel was ready to go. They had kind of put the Houthis and Hamas on their back heels, and like, if we're going to go, now we're going to go.
Yeah. So they and to the point, with Midnight Hammer, and then the lead into this with the reports Trump was saying, well, we hit them before they were going to hit us. Again, make the case. Was it the 9/11 2.0 that Sarah Adams talks about? Was that imminent in some way?
Right.
Or, tell us. I'm done just believing. So you're going to have to tell me and prove it to the extent that things can be publicly released. Otherwise, I'm just going to sit here and go, wait and see.
Well, we just keep attacking sovereign countries without congressional authorization. And why do we need congressional authorization? Because there are elected representatives, mine and yours.
Yep.
And yet, the executive can just like, yeah. And and here's another thing. I apologize. We'll get back to the show here in just a second.
Good.
You got me fired up. But here's one of the things I find loathsome, and that is we're 18 days into the war. I don't want to hear that crap, because when you got drafted in the World War II, your draft said you're here for the duration of the war plus 6 months. And that's it. Not, well, the first 18 days you can be, no, you're here until you're dead and you're in a pine box shipped home, or we win victory. And so I don't like these little ticking talk. Well, we should have been done by now. Gosh, man, I'm hungry. Are we going to be finished yet? It's like, no, that is the wrong mentality.
Well, and let's face it, World War II was, and I'm saying this as an outsider, so correct me if you disagree, that's the last one we finished.
I'll say Desert Storm. You're welcome.
Okay, yeah, I go along with that. Yeah,
that's it. So,
but again, Desert Storm also had a defined outcome.
Yes, it had a strategic end state. What is the end state here, William?
Beats me.
Me too. I couldn't tell you. I don't think anybody knows it at any level.
Exactly. So then, how do you? Let's think about it from a retirement planning standpoint. If you've got a magic number, okay, I need X number of dollars before I can have a comfortable retirement that I plan on. But if you never come up with that number, how do you know how you're doing?
Yeah.
Right. So I just
they're about to award. They're about to award. Trump is allegedly going to award Colonel John Ripley. He's passed away with the Medal of Honor for what he did at the Bridge of Dong Ha. Are you familiar with this?
I'm not. No.
Yeah, he was my regimental commander, my first regimental commander. I've got a picture of he and I together, and I'll put it up when he's gets his Medal of Honor. But so we knew Vietnam was falling, and so the word went out: do anything you can to stop the communist takeover. So he's an advisor with South Vietnamese troops. He's up close to the DMZ. Here they come. He can't raise anybody on the net. So he's got some C4, and he just starts planting the C4 under this giant bridge. And he's literally hanging and moving under the bridge like this so he won't get shot, puts all the C4 and blows the freaking bridge. Ain't asking for permission because he understands the strategic end state is to stop this push. So when you have a strategic goal like that, you have all these little autonomous agents, in the military that can act toward that goal. But when you don't have one, it's just like, I don't know what the hell we're doing. Just bomb the shit out of them. I don't really know what we're doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I'm going to flip that around a little bit. This is one of the things I've been reading about Iran, what they have learned watching 20 plus years of the GWAT. And they call it a mosaic defense is the term I saw, where you have lots of these little nodes that know what the desired end state is and are just left to run with it because they watched us, I'm going to say behead, but kill the head of the Taliban, ISIS, and watch how those, organizations fell apart because of that. So they decentralized.
Brilliant.
And this is what the challenge we're going to have now, because who's the leader of the 112th unit who knows, right? And where are they?
Yeah.
Right. So but we're still using the last playbook. Right. So this is where I think we're going to have a lot of issues there. And let's also remember too, look at the issues we had in Iraq, and it is what it is, right? That was 25 million people. Iran is 90 million.
Yeah. And I'm not convinced that we haven't learned the lessons of what Paul Bremer did when he took over in his first order to debathification.
Yes.
Johnny King is on. He says, I have more faith in gas station sushi than I do our government. Yep. You and I both. And Jeff says, you're correct. From relationships to finance, we got terrible advice. Yeah. Tony is on up there in Rhode Island. And what does Alan say?
Go in, do what needs to be done to totally win. No discussion. End it with no doubts. Finish it all. Here's the problem. That hasn't been defined publicly.
Well, we don't have the.
And it doesn't sound like
we don't.
Well, we just don't. Yeah.
Because I tell you what it looks like. If you're gonna submit 90 million radicals, you're gonna have to get rid of about 20 million of them. And we don't have the stomach for that. We just don't. I mean, it looks like we blew up a girls' school and killed 160 girls on complete accident. We did that in a half hour every day in Dresden and some of these other places. That's just a sissy skip of numbers, and look what it's doing. We don't have the political will, the societal will to do what needs to be done, and therefore we shouldn't be there, because you got to go all the way.
Yep,
it's true. That's what war is.
And we can be like, well, it should be more civilized than that. But if you look at history, that's what it takes. I mean, why did Europe submit? Right? Why did the South submit? Why did Japan submit? We're beat, and that's what it takes. Yeah. So,
because as much as I cannot, I think Sherman was probably a war criminal. At the same time, he saved a lot of people by marching to just burning the South to the freaking ground, and what Sheridan did to destroy the Shenandoah Valley that was feeding the Confederacy. These things were horrific to those of us Southerners, my ancestors that were here at the time. I'm sure they cried themselves to sleep every night, but guess what? It stopped it, or else it probably could have went on and on. And there were those that wanted a partisan. They wanted, Lee's advisor says, "Hey, let's go to the hills. Just let the army disband, run off with their weapons, and we'll fight this as guerrillas." And Lee said, "No, these men have fought honorably, and we're going to go to Appomattox and surrender this thing. Let them go home."
Mm-hmm. And that's how you get something to end, right?
That's right.
There's a winner and there's a loser, and welcome to life.
That's right, buddy.
Sometimes it sucks.
Yes, sir.
So, we're going to see more of this. What we're going to touch on, but here's a stump the chump question for you. Okay. Now, we know many of the reasons why a trip to the grocery store feels expensive. There was the money printing post-COVID. There was the supply chain issues, right? But for just a few slides here, I want to dive into, okay, those are great discussions to have and point out these things. But how can you protect yourself? How can you get your savings to help protect you from this inflation other than just investing in NVIDIA, right? Because let's face it, NVIDIA hasn't done great for the last 6 months or so. Neither is the overall stock market, right? So if you want to protect yourself, say, from higher oil prices, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's ways to do that. So let's first take a look at this next slide. Okay. Your blue line there is the S&P 500 going back to the start of 2021, right? So it went from zero, just a reference point there, up to 67, up quite a bit. What's the black line there, brother?
Live cattle.
Live cattle's performed better than the S&P 500. That's why your trip to the grocery store is more expensive. So this is something I dabble in with a little bit of the portfolio, not a lot, because you can make more money doing other things. But if a person wanted to protect themselves directly from these things, there's an ETF for live cattle futures, CATL. You buy that. Now, if your grocery store trip, that portion of your grocery store trip is more expensive, well, your account balance is also going up to go along with that. So if your account balance goes down, that's always not fun, right?
Yeah.
But it also means on a lag, your trip to the grocery store is also going to get cheaper, right? So this is also a way for us as, prudent investors. There's a lag. Live cattle futures to your grocery store is a number of days. I don't know what it is. Let's just say 60 days total. Okay. Because remember, these are cattle futures. So these are cattle prices at some point in the future, maybe say 30 days out. But that is going to filter through to your grocery store price, right? So if you start seeing cattle future prices go up and you're running a little low, maybe it's time to get ahead on buying some beef, right?
Well, I love this. You know why I love it? Because what does it take to raise animal proteins? It takes fertilizer to fertilize the field. It takes petroleum to move the cattle around. It takes grain to feed the cattle, and you got to get the grain to where the cows are. I mean, it's just, there's so much wrapped up in this. It makes complete sense to me as to why, as those prices rise, the price of that live cow's got to go up relative to what it took to make that cow.
Exactly.
Weigh 2 ton or a ton or whatever.
Yeah. So and then we look at these other ones that I came up with some examples. USO is an oil fund. You know what that? I don't even have to show you a chart. You know what that's done in the last couple of months, right?
Oh yeah.
So in the trading account, I've made money there. The extra $1 a gallon at the pump hurts, but I've got a little offset there, right? Food and beverage, FTXG is an ETF. They own Pepsi, Coke, all these food and beverage companies. So at least you get some benefit from the pain you're feeling at the checkout register there. Okay. DBA is an overall agriculture. It's got everything from, ConAgra in there to you name it, fertilizer companies, so on and so forth. It touches just about everything. And the last one I threw up there is UNG, which is natural gas. So you can offset some of these higher expenses in life with that. I'm not saying put your whole portfolio into this, because at some point these things will revert to the mean. Whenever that happens, we get a recession, some sort of major economic pullback, you're going to see these prices come down too as demand drops. So, but in the end, as we know, oil drives everything. So if you just kind of keep an eye on oil prices going up, it touches every part of life from your toothbrush to your grocery store bill.
Yeah, and right now, I don't know what the price of diesel is where you are, but the price of diesel here in Tennessee, and normally our gas prices are pretty reasonable, is almost 2x what unleaded is. I mean, it's well
Mhm.
into the fives.
Yep.
And so I can't imagine what it is to California. And the truck drivers are getting crushed. And
Hmm.
everything you buy now is going to be reflective of that higher shipping cost.
Yep. And let's talk about the relationship there because Dr. Fuller sent out a text to you and I saying a friend of his out in San Diego was paying 5.70 a gallon, I think it was, and saying that was like 2008 levels. Well, the housing market was the dry tinder for that crisis. But what kicked it off, what caused that tinder to be lit on fire was high oil prices back then. Because that was when it went to 140, 150 a barrel, somewhere in there. And then people had to
Mhm.
start making choices about what to pay. And the first thing they drop off if they have to stop paying stuff, believe it or not, is they stop paying the mortgage because it takes
Mhm.
months before they lose a place. And you always go move into some apartment, rent someplace, whatever it is. But if you stop making the car payment, you can't get to work. So the first thing that usually goes is the mortgage payment. And we saw that manifest itself then through the housing crisis. But it was the high oil prices that were the trigger to that whole event.
Yeah,
So, and back then, your average car payment wasn't over $1,000 a month.
but it is
So
now.
it is now. It absolutely is. And I haven't checked diesel prices lately. I've been on the road and then traveling. But if you do, if you use diesel, open roads. It's a fleet card that you can get. It's meant for RV users. I have it. You go on, you link an account to them. Uh, I'll save 20-25% at the pump.
Mm.
It's a great way to save money on diesel. It's only diesel, unfortunately, guys, for you guys running gassers. But gas is, like you say, cheaper right now too. And even the diesel thing, looking back on it, diesel traditionally, as we know, it was always cheaper than gasoline, right?
Hmm.
And that was also that changed out during the housing crisis because remember they started putting the fuel surcharges on for UPS and Amazon and all these things. Well,
Hmm.
they figured out that people will just pay it and not really pay attention. Diesel prices never dropped back below gas after that.
Right.
So maybe I got a little bit tinfoil hat on there, but I'm like, I think somebody somewhere went, they don't care. Let's just leave diesel up here because it worked. So yeah,
I want to circle back to we're talking about gas prices, and then we're talking about why the hell are we in Iran and yada yada yada. During the Iran-Iraq war, there was like 550,000 children that were put into these martyr brigades and told they were given the keys to heaven to walk in front of these tanks and clear minefields. No minesweeping. You don't need minesweeping when you have fanatics who will send their children uh, to walk in front of tanks while they read the Quran.
hmm,
This is the mentality we're talking about. So it speaks to
yep,
what Alan says. Go in, do what needs to be done, totally win, no discussion, end it without any doubts, finish it all. Or you
yep,
don't do you don't fire that first 5.56 ball round in anger unless you are ready to go all the way because you are fighting a mentality. I mean, can you imagine? I wouldn't let my children get hurt, let alone
yeah,
go, yeah, I got 5 sons, pick all five of
yep,
them.
yep,
Let them, take grandpa's Koran and march in front of the tanks, get yourself
yeah.
blown up. But 550,000 of them did it during the Iran Iraq war.
And that is something that the Western mind, including mine and yours, how do you even fathom that?
I can't, but I know
No,
what it's going to take to defeat a mindset like that. Just like we did,
that's it.
we're fanatics too, buddy.
Right. And that's the the dichotomy of it, right? We can realize that, but people be like, "Oh, that's so sick," and they're right.
Yeah,
But how do you stop that? There's only way. There's only one way.
yeah.
So, um, so this is meta. This is the other side of AI that I'm starting to see more of. Is it costs so much to build out these data centers and build this infrastructure for the future savings? AI's Meta rather is talking about laying off 20% of the company to offset the cost of the AI infrastructure build. So AI is already costing people their jobs before it really does the job.
Exactly.
So this is, but this is all part of the change, right? So, and I'm seeing a lot of stuff where there's a lot of talk about how AI is doing all these things in these companies, but there's also a lot of CEOs out there going, yeah, not really seeing it yet.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how it plays out. But the point is, I think we're going to see more of this. I didn't look to see what Meta stock was doing pre-market here this morning. Everybody's expecting a jump because, of course, lower costs equals more profits, and that should send the stock higher to some extent today. So
if you're letting your kids go into a white collar job in 2026, or I'm sending my kid off to college to learn freaking accounting or coding, don't do it. Blue collar is where it's at, and they command whatever price they want right now.
Yep.
And it will only get better for those in that industry. So all those 20% of those workers, man, it sucks for them, but that future is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yep. It's the Rust Belt from the 70s and 80s moving on to the white collar world.
Yep.
So I see John Shriver's on with his
come on, John.
thing that was not built by AI.
Tony said in Rhode Island, my diesel jumped from 365 to 502 in 3 weeks.
Yeah. And this is where I'm going to use Tony because you brought it up. Tony, you brought it up. Can Tony survive diesel at 502?
Probably.
Well, probably yes, but can Tony survive diesel at 502 if it took 2 years to go from 365 to 502 versus 2 weeks or 3 weeks, right? It's the shock of that, right? So and that's what we're seeing with the oil stuff. Can the world survive, $140 a barrel oil? Yeah, if it takes a number of years to get there and there's time for that to flow through the system, it's the shock.
Yeah.
And that's where we're going to see this pain because paychecks aren't going to reset for these higher gas and oil prices fast enough because they can't turn around and come back 3 months later and be like, hey, we're going to give you a pay cut now because oil prices went down. Yeah, that's not how it works.
Oh, sure.
So it's the shock to the system. Okay. You mind reading this one off for us, brother?
Yeah, I'd love to. Let's see here. The U.S. oil market has undergone a historic transformation. The U.S. has been a net exporter of oil every quarter since 2020, with exports up to 360 million barrels per quarter, the second highest on record. Since 2008, U.S. oil exports have surged 800%, driven by the shale revolution. Over the same period, imports have fallen by roughly 38% to 260 million, near the lowest since the 1990s. The U.S. has gone from a net importing to 400 million barrels of oil per quarter in 2006 to net exporting 100 million barrels per quarter in 2025. This marks one of the biggest energy shifts by a major economy in modern history. U.S. oil dominance is reshaping global energy dynamics.
So this is all great, right?
However,
so why are we still feeling this pain at the pump that Tony pointed out? We're exporting oil. Why don't we just leave it here? Well, there's a simple answer, and it's so simple it's being overlooked by most people. Oil is priced globally. When you look at the price of oil, there isn't, well, here's U.S. oil, here's UK oil, no, it's one price in the whole world. So when something like the Iran conflict breaks out, that changes the price of oil throughout the world. Because put yourself in the big chair at Exxon or wherever you want to pick. If you could sell oil internationally for, 105 a barrel, why would you leave it here in the U.S. with, at say 65, 70, right? So this is why we're still feeling the pain at the pump, even though we are now a net exporter of oil. However, what I will throw in there is I think that's why we're seeing some of the actions we are with the Iran conflict, because we're not dependent on them or the Saudis anymore for the oil. So I think this all ties together. And of course, we can tie Venezuela into that as well.
And I want to think, and you and I have talked about this, it's been a while, but, with regard to U.S. oil refineries, refining and then refining the crude into gasoline. When's the last time we built a new refinery?
They just announced one as a point of fact.
Wow. And one of
Yes.
the reasons why they haven't is, number one, there's little to no financial incentive to do so. And
Mhm.
number two,
Right.
the regulations to try to build one is you might as well
Yep.
build one on Mars. I mean, it's just
Yep. And that has certainly been the case. I just saw last week there was one announced somewhere in Texas building the first new refinery. It's been announced that Trump said something to the extent of, yeah, just get those regulations out of the way. Let's build this.
yeah, we got to, man.
So, I mean, you want to talk about a sea change, right? But
Mhm.
again, this is all part of the fourth turning as well, right? Because you got somebody in there going, you know what, that old way wasn't working, change it. And that's what the fourth turning is really about, is the old way stopped working,
Mhm.
right?
Well, just
So
like you
this
said,
this
but here's the thing, and this is the scary part because you're right. I love that you get a strong man in there and he goes, "I'm sweeping this way, I'm getting rid of that," all this kind of stuff. But when it comes to the faith in the societal institutions that have been
Mhm.
eroded, that is a bigger problem to me than any other
Yes.
thing. When you
Yep.
lose, like what are the societal institutions? There's the military, there's the health infrastructure, there's the politicians, there's the entertainment sector. There's like seven of them I think that are
Mhm.
recognized. I don't trust a damn one of them. Of course, the news media, I don't trust any of them except maybe the military.
Mhm.
And had Hexeth and Raising Cain not got in there, I'm not, and renamed it and refocused it on lethality, I don't know that I would trust them either. But right now, they have my confidence, and it's probably the only government institution that I still have any confidence in.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And this isn't just a US thing, right? I just saw a
Mhm.
headline. It was on Fox News, so it's going to bend that way, guys. Okay. But it showed a lady laying in a hospital bed in Canada saying, I would rather pay than put up with this because they're going through a health care crisis up there because their system is underfunded. It's free, but it's look up the wait times in Canada. It's months and months and months.
Yep.
So they'll say it's free. I will argue that because I've seen their tax rates. So it's not free. There's just no charge at the time of service.
Yep.
That's different than free.
Yeah. I got a couple questions I want to throw to you here.
Okay.
Bruce says, "Is the U.S. oil a different quality than other countries' oil?" And I believe it is. Is that correct?
It is. West Texas Intermediate is a very light, sweet, easy to refine oil, which is why if you look at the different oils that are out there, the Texas is usually the most expensive one because there aren't as many downline costs. The flip side of that is the Venezuelan oil, very heavy, very sour. So you will see different prices across those, and only certain refineries in the world can even refine the Venezuelan oil,
Hmm.
and most of those are in the U.S.
Exactly, and that's one of the things Trump says. Hey, we got the infrastructure for this kind of oil, and I think a
Yep.
lot of people just kind of breezed over the top of him. But
Yeah.
he has a freaking point. Jeff says, "Have we replaced the oil reserves that Biden used up during his presidency?" No, and
Nope.
that's a freaking huge problem. We got to
Yep.
fill those
And
things up.
yep. And Trump tried to get that through Congress because it had to be funded. They shot it down. I think he used an executive order then to do that, but it has not been refilled very much. And now we're draining those down even further. I think we're going to get down to pretty much the minimum, which is I forget the number of days, guys, but it was in the double digits. It wasn't by much of
And that's
oil in the
criminal, man. I mean,
strategic
that you
reserves.
talking
Yep.
about selling, you might as well sold out secrets. That
Yeah.
strategic petroleum reserve was not the political petroleum reserve. That's exactly what he did to get some freaking votes. It's
Yep.
disgusting.
And if Trump's going to do an executive order on anything, it should have been refilling that. So I'll
Yes.
lay that at Trump's feet because that was just very short sighted. I mean, maybe you can't do that by executive order. Maybe you can. I don't know. Okay.
Right. Why
Um,
not? We do everything else by executive order these days.
yeah, exactly. And that's maybe another symptom of the fourth turning when the system just stops working, right? And that's
Yeah,
really what executive orders are anymore. It's
that's
because
right.
I mean Obama said it. I tried Congress, but if not, I've got a pen.
Yep.
right? Paraphrasing that a bit. So here's another one that I'm watching, guys. Big tech companies are issuing bonds. They're flooding the market with bonds, with debt. Now you hear about these huge profits they're making, right? So why are they raising more funds through this debt? Well, uncertain future. They're not sure what's coming. Maybe. The other thing too is if you can lock in, you know, if you will, the equivalent of like a home equity loan now, right? If you can
Mm-hmm.
lock that in for a number of years at what you think is going to be a lower interest rate than we're looking at in the future, then that's just good financial planning, right?
Mm-hmm.
No different than refinancing the house at 2.75 during COVID because now you're locked in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus doing, say, a adjustable rate mortgage back then, right? So this is, and they can always just pay the bonds off if things turn the other way and they go cheaper, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is, I think this is a smart move on the part of the tech companies, but the so the problem here is twofold. You've got the government, the U.S. government, creating all kinds of bonds because we have to, and we have to refinance a whole wall of debt that's coming. But now you have these tech companies also throwing bonds out there. Well, now we're not there yet, but if we move into a situation where there's more debt being issued than there is demand, that will drive rates up. And then it becomes, would you rather have a NVIDIA bond or a U.S. government bond? I don't know. I don't study the bond market that closely. But when they start competing at some point, this could become an issue. So, and you will, if you read through this, this is also what happened just before the dot-com bubble. They started issuing a ton of debt.
Yeah.
And you
That's
can see
never a
that
good sign.
right. And, we can also see it in fairness there in 2015, 16, and again around 2020. Now they issued all that debt in 2020 because they didn't know what was coming, but around 15, 16, 17, rates were starting to slowly climb back up. So they were locking that in back then. So are they seeing the same thing? Maybe. Just something I'll keep an eye on and keep you guys up to date on. So we'll see where it shakes out at. Don't know. So, but also if they think rates are going to go higher and maybe some tumultuous times are coming, maybe it's a good time. Look at your own financial situation and go, do I need to lock some stuff in? So,
Mm-hmm.
I think I saw a few more questions come in there as well, brother. Or comments.
Let's see. Alan says regulations have been another way the government passes laws that cost citizens and adds to the government income by overt taxes. Of course, Donald is also way late here, but good morning from the People's Republic of Virginia. Jeff says the past year, the effing Congress has failed us in every way imaginable. You are correct.
Yeah.
But
let's remember, it's all Team Red, and they can't get their fecal matter gathered.
And if they get their ass handed to them in the midterms, then that they deserve it. Yep. Absolutely deserve it. There's no excuse here.
Yep. And you know what? We're already kind of there, even though it's all Team Red. Mm-hmm. I've always been an advocate that gridlock is the best thing for the country. Now, I came up with that opinion before executive orders were so rampant. Mm-hmm. But at least when it's gridlocked, you got Congress on one side and the presidency on the other side. Really, about the only things you get through are something that's somewhat reasonable. Mm. Now, executive orders change all that, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see.
They do. And going back to your fuel, going back to the oil issues, let's throw on top of this a partial government shutdown, and you've got makings of a really nasty travel situation that impacts your industry and the airline industry. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
There's like 46,000 TSA agents, and so far 300 have walked off just without getting paychecks, and so that's going to cause problems. The fuel surge, is going to cause problems. Mm-hmm. There's a whole lot of problems coming that way. So for summer travel, if they don't get that sorted out, mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be a mess.
Yep, it will be a mess. So, and we'll see where all that shakes out. But again, this is, the institutions can't get their stuff together, and it's all
Mm-hmm.
part of that same thing. And I think we're going to see more and more of this over time. So, speaking of this, I'm going to go way off in left field here, okay? But this is French pensioners now have higher income than working age adults. So the retired people are making more than the working people. So this is part of the haves and the have-nots, right? So this is also part of what will drive civil strife. Okay. So if we look at this chart, you've got your different countries there, right? And your numbers across the top are the percentage of the retired person's income as a percentage of the average working age population. You got Australia down there, about 62%, right? So your retired person is making 62% of what the average working person is. You can see Japan, Denmark, as we work our way up through there. The US is at about 84%. So when you retire, you make about 84% of what you made when you were working. 80% is kind of the benchmark in financial planning, guys, is a good general rule of thumb. And you can watch it move up through these things. And then you got France up there. The retired people who locked in very generous government benefits over there, right? Mm-hmm. They're making more money than the average working age person.
Yep.
Now, you want to talk about a boomer versus millennial fight waiting to happen? It's one thing here in the United States, you got Social Security, which you'll never be more than you were making. It's just the way the system's set up.
Yeah.
And as it is, we all complain about that because it's like, when the system started, there were like 30 something workers to every retired person. And now it's like Sally Struthers. You can get the picture of the person your Social Security payments are going to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this can't last. Now, the younger people in France, in my opinion, are rightfully going to say, no, you got to cut this, right? The government's squeezed by debt over there. But just like here in the US, I imagine the older people vote more so than the young people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want to talk about a setup for social strife over there. Here
Can we add
US,
one more layer to that problem with France?
Please do. Yeah.
You've got between 6 and, you got roughly, 6 million Muslims over there. Now, we guess it's because the French laws prohibit census takers from asking about religious beliefs. So, but most people would say about 10% of France is Muslim. And you have this little tasty demographic you just throwed on us here.
Yep.
And you got a problem, buddy.
Well, and let's tie that into what just happened recently in Spain, where 500,000 immigrants were just granted citizenship.
Yep.
Are they paying into the system at all? But they're going to get the benefits.
And
right?
Guess what? All you have to do is get the way the EU is set up. Those 500,000 people now have complete freedom to go anywhere in the EU that they want. Anywhere.
Yep.
That's all it takes.
Yep. And that's another one where we can look at EU. That didn't always exist, right?
Nope.
And how did that start? That started with a coal purchase supply agreement. That structure about purchasing coal inside the Eurozone, if you will, morphed into the Eurozone that they have now. So, the camel got the nose under the tent way, way back on something that was pretty innocuous. And then it just morphed and grew into this. And undoing that as part of a fourth turning is going to cause a lot of pain and angst. So
here's the crazy thing, like with what Spain just did, they're like, okay, we're looking at our Zahan little demographic bell curve, and we know we need people to work in agriculture, the healthcare industry, but that's not what these Muslim migrants do.
Right.
You don't see them out there picking olives and crap like that. That's not what they do, man. So it's the stupidest thing ever.
Well, and this is the octogenarians in charge. Well, this is the way the system works. You bring people in, they work, they contribute, all that stuff. Well, the reality has changed, but they're still like, well, the system's always worked this way, right? And especially the younger people are like, yeah, no, that's not what's actually happening. And they're like, no, this is what's always happened. So this is part of that disconnect, and you can see it looking around. And I work with some younger people, and it comes up, and it's like a lot of guys our age who don't study this stuff don't get that there are real problems out there for a lot of these younger folks trying to get going, right?
100%. I see it with my children.
Yep. Yeah. And there's so much of that out there, and that's part of the whole generational thing. And generations have always made fun of other generations. It's just the way it is. But a lot of the younger people are like, no, you guys don't get it. Yeah, I'm making X number of dollars a year, and that's way more than you made, but all the expenses are higher too. And on the other side of that, in my opinion, the expectations of a lot of the younger generations is they want to start up here instead of building from here. Mm-hmm. And that's I think a legitimate knock on the younger generation is they don't want to pay those dues. They want to start off on third base. But they don't understand that us older generations didn't get on third base by, hitting a triple, right? No. It took a long time. So there's legitimate gripes on both ends of that demographic scale.
Where they really get, where they're really getting screwed, in my opinion, is wages have been flat, but home prices have done this.
Yep. And
so that's, I mean, if you look like at East Knoxville with all these blue staters moving in, and there's just an explosion of apartments. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, well, that's good for the people that own those apartments, but for the people that are just throwing money away every month, not owning anything, that is a problem.
It is. It absolutely is. And everything else is going up. Like we were saying, the average new car payment is, over $1,000 a month. Well, when you and I were young, there was an S10 pickup, right?
Mm-hmm.
AM, FM radio, the cassette was an option, right? Mm-hmm. And, you could pick one of those up, in the dollars back then for $8,000, $9,000. Mm-hmm. Basic transportation that you could throw a couple of pieces of drywall in the back of to work on your house or what have you. Not a super nice truck. Probably at that price, probably was a manual transmission or the millennial anti-theft device, as I call it. And, no air conditioning, all those sorts of things. So that truck doesn't exist now. But in fairness, even if it did, a lot of people would be like, no air conditioning, no Bluetooth. I'm not buying that piece of junk.
Right.
Right. So there's both sides of this, I think.
Let me give you, let's talk about some specifics here. So in 1972, sure. My grandparents give my mom and dad a check. Hey, you got a young family. You got your second baby about to arrive. My brother Jeff's about to arrive. Here's a blank check. Go buy whatever car you want for your young family. So my dad, into hot rods at the time, he goes and buys a 1972 Dodge Demon. They have to move the sliding glass doors to drive it off the showroom floor. Beautiful, right? Mm-hmm. That car cost him $2,759. I plugged that into an inflation calculator, and that same buying power now is $21,936. $21,000. Now, if you go to try to buy the new Dodge Demon, if they still make them, where they made them for a few years, they're like $90,000. Mm-hmm. If it was the same, if we're apples and apples, it would be a $21,000 car. It's a $90,000 to $120,000 car, and that's just MSRP on that Demon back then. So right. I think when the younger generation goes, yeah, but y'all don't get it. Like, okay, play with the CPI inflation calculator that the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and you will see a lot of the complaints that they're saying is founded in evidence.
Mm-hmm. And I'll even go a step further. So why aren't we seeing, if we just isolated car inflation, why aren't we seeing more? Because they changed. It isn't just look at that. It also looks at hedonics, right? So when they added the Bluetooth, when they went to fuel injection, when they made the car more reliable, the Bureau of Labor Statistics said, well, that's increasing the quality of the car. So therefore, not all that increase in price counts as inflation.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why you're seeing this. If you plug all that in, it doesn't reflect the reality. And And I think the way that reality is realized within us is the feeling of that, right? So there's, gosh, I mean, it's these chickens are going to come home to roost. These younger folks, I mean, yeah, they come out of school and they make great money, or they go in the trades and they make great money, but man, it's a lot harder for them to build off of that. I mean, look at the millennials. I mean, it's fun to make fun of them, and they eat Tide Pods and whatever else, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let's face it, they came of age during the GFC. Their parents got smacked. They got saddled with student loans as a generation. And then they came out into a job market that was terrible for about 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. And here we have Project 1868 says, back in the 70s, 60% of Americans were middle class. Now it's 40. And we're on a race to 30%, 20%. And that widening gap is going, the civil strife that's going to come along with it could tear us apart. This is one of the things that I always kind of, a metric that I use in 1986, when I had my first job at McDonald's, I made $3.35 an hour. Bear with me for a minute. I bought the fuel I bought in Lebanon, Tennessee was 68 cents a gallon. So I could get about roughly five gallons of fuel to keep that big Mopar running. And nowadays, so if the same 5X, on your minimum wage job, the minimum wage job would be $17.50 an hour. It is not, not even close. That's what the supervisor makes.
Right.
And it's like, we're these, and oh, by the way, the housing prices have gone. Now, if you're of a certain age, you got some gray in your hair, like me and you and some of the folks watching this morning, that's great for us. But for a kid starting out, they're getting crushed.
And that is the difference between an asset owner and I'll call it a wage slave.
Yes,
right?
sir. That's
renting, right? And that ties into Donald's comment here. You want to read that one off?
Yeah, man. I'm 57 and make a good living. My current car, a 2023 Kia Soul, was $30,000, and the first car I ever owned that was over $25,000. I see people that work for me making a lot less, buying a $40,000 to $50,000 cars, and they can't figure out why they are broke. Never mind the rent-to-own rims that are. We talked about this before. At Paris Island, people made fun of the chief warrant officer, me, because it's like, sir, I don't know if any of the Marines have told you, you drive the biggest piece of crap in the parking lot. And it was a 1994. It was a totaled car, rebuilt title. The air didn't work. The heat didn't work. It had it had a cassette player that did not work. And I drove that thing in the heat of South Carolina for 6 years. You know why? Because I was paying down everything so that when I stepped out of the Marine Corps, I was debt-free 100% with a ton of money in the bank. And I would see these kids, to Donald's point, a Lance Corporal that's been in the Marine Corps 2 years, and he's driving a freaking pimped-out Escalade with these rims that cost $1 bajillion. If you set that aside, those stupid people are always going to exist. And they're what P.T. Barnum called, sucker born every minute. I'm talking about the bell curve of, of this generation of Americans that are getting screwed. What does Project 1868 say?
Minimum wage is $19.64 in Denver, and now 80% of Colorado restaurants that closed in 2025 were in Denver. And we're seeing this, right? So, so these wages go up, or from a consumer standpoint, you start seeing service charges I see it on restaurant bills because I travel a lot. This is to provide, better for our employees and so on and so forth. Well, at some point, your average family is just going to tap out and be like, you know what, we've got McDonald's at home, right? And then it comes around. Now the business can't afford to pay the people more, and this is all part of it. Eventually, and I think within the next year or two, we're going to see a pretty darn good recession, and it's going to be a struggle not to go into deflation.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Now for your pet rock, we know how to make sure that does not happen, right? Right. Old Ben Bernanke start kicking money out of helicopters, and that's what's going to have to happen. But this is where people get squeezed, right? So the person working at that restaurant goes to their boss and says, "Hey, I need more money," and they have a legitimate concern, like the housing prices you brought up, right? And the boss says, okay, yep. And then they raise prices. And then right now, a lot of people are taking on debt to keep eating out and do these things. That stops eventually.
Yep.
So when, don't know. Will it be the high oil prices? If these oil prices stay high for, say, through the end of summer, I don't think the economy gets through that.
I'm going to circle back to something you talked about maybe an hour ago when you talked about you brought your family down from Wisconsin and did kind of a Civil War tour through Tennessee. One of the things that if a student of that would, like you said, you were taught up in Yankee land that the cause of the Civil War was very simple. It was slavery, it was evil, and we had to just crush it, yada, yada, yada. But if you really go back and look, you will see a lot of this reoccurring, this idea of wage slavery. Most Americans lived on a rural subsistence farm, especially in the South, in this agrarian community. And the idea that you would that a man would go out and work for a wage, that was just, God almighty. And it led to a lot of the hatred and you're destroying our way of life. I'm saying all that to say, as we see the gap widen, and as we see the wage slavery fail Americans, it's going nowhere good. Now, what the show tries to do is give you some things you can do. You gave us some tips already this morning, Will, with live cattle and some other things. I'll give you another tip. Keep your family close. On our little 14 acres of freedom here, we've got 4 houses on it, and our family lives here. And my brother lives 400 meters across the tree line, and we pray together, we eat together, we go to church together, we train together, whether that's shooting or grappling or whatever, and it's there's, instead of having 4 families spread out, 4 families paying 4 different property taxes and all this other crap, we've just combined it in, and we are better for it. So we're trying to live like our ancestors did, closer to that. If we need food, we've got a food pantry here. You don't need to run to the store that's 30 minutes away. Just hit the pantry here at mom and dad's house out in the garage and take all you want. Got 2 deep freezers full of food. We're trying to do that. And I think that if you can't, I get it. Some Americans live in apartments. Maybe it's impossible for you, but as much as you can, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. The sharing of the costs and the responsibilities, right? That's great that you guys are doing it. That's awesome. So what's Ted say there?
Fiscal conservative boomer, delayed gratification beat into my head by a Great Depression grandparents and parents, assume a lost value on those who don't know 9/11 never happened. Delayed gratification, man, that's everything.
Yeah. When I learned that was when I was able to get out of debt in my 20s, right?
Yeah.
But now, so I'm going to throw it back the other way, just to touch on that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you've got I'm not talking about rims on a car. I'm talking about buying a home here. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So let's say you take a young person and you say, well, delay that gratification, save up your money. Mm-hmm. Here's the problem. And it is a legitimate problem that generation's having. Home prices in some areas are accelerating so fast, you can't outsave that.
Yeah. Red states. Tennessee.
Yep.
My home price is probably 3 or 4x'd in the last 14 years.
Yep. And you're seeing, double-digit annual increases in that. So that is a legitimate problem the younger generation is having that we didn't have, right? Mm-hmm. Because back then, basically, homes went up at about the rate of inflation. Well, now you're seeing in certain areas real supply and demand issues. And some areas it's going the other way. Look at Austin, Texas. Prices are dropping there. So that's one area where the delayed gratification is working out. So you got to kind of pick and choose on that, right? So, but this is also where regulations come back into, I think it was Alan's comment earlier about regulations. You go to California, you basically can't do any new construction to speak of because it's going to hurt the earthworm, the red earthworm or whatever, right? So we can't build houses. So you get a supply-demand mismatch, right? So it works and it doesn't. Depends on where you are and, geographically.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
So, but yeah, so it's
which is why people are freaking flooding in here.
Yeah.
into the red
Yep.
states. It's not just the
Mhm.
freedom, but it's also, and again, we have a microbrew right across the street. I've mentioned it here before. And every weekend they have food trucks, so we'll go over there and eat at the food truck. And I don't hear a Southern accent out
Mhm.
there. That parking lot is filled with Illinois, Rhode Island, license plate. We're getting some Colorado refugees now. We got the
Mhm.
Californians, we got the Illinois license plates, and they're all, bitching about where they just left from. It's like, dude, let it
Mhm.
go. Build this
Yeah.
place. Be
Right.
here now.
And bring your perspective
Yeah.
of, hey, you guys don't want what I left.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, hey, we need to do some of those things, because some of those
Bullshit.
things
Not a
turn
one
into
of them.
all those things.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. Look at
So,
Virginia.
yeah, absolutely. So,
It's disgusting.
yep. So we were doing some shows on options. What happened? Well, honestly, we got a little sidetracked. The Iran thing happened on that show. So we're going to go back. I'm out next Monday, brother. Monday
Okay.
after that, we're going to do, unless something really blows up in the world, we're going to go back and just do options, stock options.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
So we'll kind of restart from the beginning and review to bring everybody back up to speed. And then get into the where I'm trying to go with the whole thing, right? Into the in the money ones that give you some downside protection and still generate income for you. That strategy has actually completely changed my retirement planning. So, or I put this, changed my retirement planning to a large degree and my plan for after retirement completely. So, haven't forgotten about those shows. I'm still passionate about using those. Just got sidetracked with this other stuff, guys. So on the 30th, that Monday, we're going to go back, do a review of how they work and dig deeper on that. Might take one more show after that to get some
sounds good.
real world examples going there.
Will Parker is on and Dr. Fuller is on. Good.
All right.
Gentlemen.
Awesome. Good to see
Glad
you
to
guys.
have you on.
So, given the fourth turning, given everything we're seeing in the world, given the Iran threats we're seeing, both cyber, the one we talked about earlier, with the medical device company. I can't remember. Did we talk about that on the show or just the green room, brother?
Just the green room, I believe.
Okay. You want to bring that one up real quick? We'll talk about that real fast.
Yeah. Is it here?
Yeah, there you go. So Wall Street Journal, just a few days ago, these folks who work for Stryker, who's a medical device company, they make artificial joints, they make the robotics to do the robotic surgeries on folks. Their 60 something thousand employees woke up Wednesday and found out their cell phones and laptops wouldn't work. And then they were told don't log into anything. And Iran came out and said, yep, it was us. So this is something to keep in mind, guys. We're seeing attacks on banks, right? Cyber attacks on banks. And the Iranians are no joke when it comes to hacking. Okay. And I see this is part of their mosaic defense we talked about, right? So this is fourth generation warfare. We can go back to, what was the book, brother? The two PLA kernels, Unrestricted Warfare. Tough book to find, guys. You can find it. It's a dry read, but it's a good one to look at. It's the Chinese plan, and they're ticking it off. Moving into whether it be cyber, social. We saw it with elections with the Russian bots, right, on both sides of this. I see this as the next escalation within this fourth generation warfare. So all that to get to, have some cash on hand. What happens if they go after payment systems? How are you going to pay for groceries? How are you going to pay for gas? Right. So have a little extra gasoline sitting around the house right now. I know it's expensive right now. 10, 15 gallons is better than nothing. Right. If you can do more, do more. Food, we've been preaching food storage for years. Now might be a time to get on that if you haven't already. Because again, if the payment systems go down, everything stops, right? Yeah. So I think we'll see more of this if this Iran action continues on, especially if they become more desperate. And God forbid Sarah Adams ends up being right about 9/11 2.0 and there's major attacks, then everything's going to shut down, right? So, and there's
MRE World, I come across them the other day. They're not affiliated anyway. I get no financial kickback, but some of the prices that they have on cases of MREs are the cheapest I've ever seen in my life.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, like a case for like $34 or something like that.
Wow. Okay.
So less than $2 per MRE. And I think they were built, this, I want to say they have 2025 dates on them. So they're a year old and can last for, for a long, long time. So it couldn't hurt to throw a couple $100 at that, stack them up in your
Yep.
garage, kind of forget about
Yep.
them.
Absolutely. Let's look at Alan's comment real quick.
My wife is practice manager at a local physician's office. They are very worried about cyber attacks. They are backing up files like crazy. Very wise move.
Back up your own files, guys. I use no affiliation. I use iDrive. Automatically backs up my computer every night, and bingo, external hard drive. And
1 TB, brother. It's got everything on it. It pretty much travels with me. It can be run over by a car. It can be submerged.
Yep. And that's the way to go. I've got an external one at home, and then I keep it in a Faraday bag on top of that. Right.
Genius.
So there's a lot of Gerald's asking where you saw those MRE prices.
Oh, good question. Let's see. Let me pop this back up here. I think it's MRE Warehouse. Let me clarify that. MRE's World. Came across them on Instagram.
All right, MRE's World. Okay, cool.
Yeah, MRE's World.
Awesome. So this is back up your own files. Print off stuff, right? Print it off, throw it in a Ziploc bag, toss it in the gun safe, right?
Yep.
So these are just good preparedness things. So all that to get to, if you go back to that the final slide there, brother. The other one.
Sorry.
It's all good. You want to read that one off for us, man?
If you were looking to hire someone to provide security for your family and you were presented with your own resume, would it be enough? And can I talk about this?
Please.
When I got out of the Marine Corps and I was a cop and I was making some extra money, training, there was a need amongst the divorce attorneys in Knoxville that were terrified that some, pissed off husband was going to come in. So I was training a few of them on the side. And the way here's my sales pitch. They invite me to their house and they're wanting to have a cup of coffee or whatever. And I'm like, you got a VHS player? Yeah. I pop in a video of me fighting in a tournament and me shooting and stuff like that. And I'd be like, now that I'm in your home, what could you do to stop me? I'm like, well, probably nothing. Like, yeah. That's why you need to train, and let me help you. Let me show you and your family how we can make you guys safer. So it's kind of what we call an effects probe in the biz. What effect is that going to have on you if you run up against somebody that knows what the hell they're doing?
Yep.
So yeah, this is a spot on thing here.
Yep. And this is, and it goes beyond, when we talk about security, it's also that cyber security we're talking about. Are you running a VPN? Are you backing your stuff up? Have you printed off the stuff that's really important? Right. All these things. You got good password protections. All these things are part of that security.
I tell you, we just did a phenomenal show with Andrew Frisbee, who's an AWS member, and he works for a giant, I think it's a financial company, as their cyber guy. And the shows we've done with him have done incredibly well on the back end with downloads. So I encourage you to go check those out. We need to have him on again. But, a lot of it, too, is how vulnerable your children are online, and this is something that you and I had. Our childhood was free of this. Did not happen. I'm not saying you couldn't have got molested or taken advantage of by somebody in a position of authority along the way. And for those that happened, I'm sorry, but the exposure our children have nowadays is just unbelievable.
It sure is. And they can be completely groomed remotely. And the first time they leave, that's it. It isn't multiple times going to see, whoever.
Yeah.
So big issues there. And again, that's another one that
this damn sexploitation, man. I mean, go listen to that show. A lot of this is foreign to us because we don't even think like these people do. But next thing you know, they got them taking photographs of themselves and it's out there on the internet. And then they're They're telling them, if we're going to send this to your friends, and they know the friends' names because it's a spider web of who their social relationships are. The next thing you know, these children are hanging themselves or harming themselves.
Yep.
It's sick.
Yeah. Yep. Had it happen in our area at home, young man committed suicide from that. And terrible stuff. And it's not just out there playing games. It's not.
No.
Yeah, it's where the predators are too. So sad stuff. So work on that, guys. Work on every piece of that security puzzle, and it's daunting. It's a lot of work.
Because
all right, the fight is coming.
Yeah,
Be ready.